The media loves repetition. Repeat the same story again and again, and like Beetlejuice, the story appears. Right now, there's the Ukraine refrain, where opinions about a phone call actually drown out its actual words.
Another day, another smoking gun.
It is definitely a smoking gun.
Ukraine was a smoking gun.
The bombshell text messages, what they revealed,
came out to defend the initial bombshell.
This is shaping up, obviously, to be yet another political bombshell.
an impeachable offense.
What is the standard of an impeachable offense?
That is an impeachable offense.
It's like they have the same script. It's sad, the same media that made Benghazi a punchline shake with rage over a phone call that came with a transcript. And then there's Syria.
The president is abandoning the Kurds.
And selling out the Kurds.
We are now abandoning the Kurds.
Abandoning the Kurds.
Abandoning our allies.
And this president just abandons them.
It's abandonment of Kurdish allies.
If we're backing away from our commitment to the Kurds, where do they turn?
Well, that was alarmingly identical. So those who feared this president would lead us into wars are now upset he's moving 50 to 100 troops. Just like the people who hated hawkish John Bolton, but then were outraged when he bolted because Trump wasn't hawkish enough. Of course, we know Trump's a dove. He favors trade wars over real ones and delighted in removing North Korea's reasons for paranoia. It's almost like Trump has a consistent, if not always artful, point of view.
We're getting out of the endless wars. It's a quagmire. We're up to close to $8 trillion, and we're bringing our folks back home. We're now acting as police. We're policing areas. We're doing jobs that other countries should be doing. The hardest thing I have to do, by far, much harder than the witch hunt, is signing letters to parents of soldiers that have been killed. I went to Walter Reed, and I gave out 5 Purple Hearts to incredible young men. For me, it's very hard when I see that. It's very hard.
Strong words, which is why the media didn't touch it. Whether you hate it or not, Trump's decision wasn't impulsive, but actually a campaign promise and reflects opinions going back decades. He's a miser with blood and treasure. You can call it misguided, but at least admit that it exists. But the media won't. It's repetition 24/7 to avoid real truths about a new era. One in which we've seen the highest household median income in history, punishment of China for oppressing Muslims, continued prison reform, record employment for women and minorities, and now attempts to draw down foreign wars. That the media finds such things trivial says it all about the media. It's not hawks versus doves. It's them versus you. They can't stand you. And I bet the feeling is mutual. I'm not going to admit to being an expert on Syria, but I'm just very suspicious of how the line was drawn so immediately, Dana, that everybody had the exact same thing before the dust settled.
I think partly that's because they were hearing that directly from people who are there on the ground, who are in our intelligence and military forces.
But why? But nobody mentions the number of troops. You have to, pull that out of people.
You just mentioned it, and
3 days later.
The truth is, I'm pretty clear. I was pretty clear that we had 100 to 150 people there, and they were there to help deter the situation. And commanders-in-chief, they have to make really tough decisions, and nothing is black and white. These are always shades of gray, and it's very complex. And the Kurds should have known that we were there. It was transactional, it was tactical, and it was temporary. However, any president knows that not all decisions are going to be agreed by with everybody else. But the decision-making process should be one that can be respected. In this case, it was very hard to understand how it happened all of a sudden. And now he's talking about mediation. He just said in the press conference as he was walking out, well, now we're maybe going to mediate. But they lost, the Kurds lost 100 people last night in the fighting. So I think that the critics of the president on the right, they have his best interests in mind. They don't want him to have to be criticized. They want him to be able to do what he needs to do to fulfill campaign promises and to do what he did. We defeated ISIS, but the we is very interesting. We had very few people there. The Kurds were actually on the ground doing the work for us, and they lost 11,000 people. And the Kurdish leaders, they also have to send letters to their people.
So when do you pull out? Do you ever pull out, Jesse?
Sure.
I mean, the fact is, this is a marriage of convenience between America and the Kurds who have a long-standing feud with Turks. Do we just stay there, and do we end up perhaps fighting the Turks?
Well, listen, I think when Barack Obama pulled out of Iraq, he abandoned our allies in Iraq. But the media said, oh, that was a strategic redeployment. And then they cheered him. And then Trump had to come in and clean it up and bomb everybody and promise the American people he wasn't going to stay. He's trying to keep a campaign promise. I agree with Dana. Alliances don't last forever. I mean, we were allied with Saddam Hussein. We're shaking his hand. The next thing you know, we're invading his country and hanging him. I mean, come on. And then we pulled out and left his people to die. And then we went back in and saved the people again. So this happens all the time. Right now, to say that we abandoned the Kurds, I think, is not really seeing what actually happened. We let the Kurds have a third of Syria. They have the entire northeast of Syria, where 90% of the oil reserves are, and all of the great agricultural land. We're talking about a very small section right now, and it's right in between the pipeline that runs north to Turkey to sell oil to the Europeans. Turkish people, they just want to make sure they have that pipeline locked down. All I care about is we have the ISIS fighters guarded in the prisons. That's all I care about. And if I was the president, I'd just ship them all to Antarctica.
Well,
but that's why I'm not president.
You know who's guarding the prisons right now? The Kurds who are being bombed by Turkey. So the question is, how are they going to get in and make sure that the tens of thousands of ISIS fighters aren't just going to walk right out and, as the president said, go to Europe? I mean, that is a concern. And ISIS fighters going to Europe is a direct threat to the American people. We just indicted an ISIS guy a month ago who went to Syria, trained as a sniper, and came back and was living in Brooklyn, planning additional attacks in the United States. So you said alliances don't last forever. That is true. The alliance with Turkey, as a member of NATO, has to be looked at because Turkey told the president that they wouldn't be bombing civilians as they went into this. They've already killed civilians in the last day. They said they wouldn't go after the Kurds. They're doing that. They're bombing hospitals. And they're not holding up their end of the deal. So I'm just a little bit confused about the president's statement that he wants to take troops out, which is fine. That's something he said he would do, consistent.
Right.
But it's inconsistent with what he just tweeted, which is, well, if the Kurds are getting slaughtered by the Turks, then we can use a military option and send thousands of troops in. And if you're of the idea that you do not want American forces to be deployed on the ground, you have to have alliances on the ground. And the Turks did some things, but the Kurds did more when it came to fighting ISIS. And I think 11,000 dead Kurdish fighters, in terms of how small their population is and giving them the land that they were occupying is a pretty good deal considering what they did for us and limiting the attacks that happened on American soil as a result of that.
Let me just jump in real quick and say that I just disagree with the premise because I don't think this is the media versus Trump on this issue. I think we're hearing right here at this table people who are not members of the mainstream media, the mainstream media, saying things that are very smart and in opposition to the president's policy. And I also think, therefore, it's much more the case that you see people, even Pat Robertson, and I don't think he's a member of the mainstream.
Now you believe Pat Robertson.
No, I'm just citing Pat Robertson for saying that Trump is in danger of losing his mandate of heaven if he permits the slaughter of the Kurds. And so what you see is that Republicans, including Lindsey Graham, right, on Capitol Hill, a friend to the president, saying this is wrong, this is not
that surprising?
Good. And using the word that you say is so bad for the media, abandonment, they're using the same word. To my mind, what you're seeing is not a matter, again, of some kind of partisanship. This is about a policy decision that people find objectionable. You said, oh, well, it's only a few people being moved. But, Greg, the reason that it's a big deal is if Turkey had attacked an American or killed an American, we'd go to war. So we move our people, opening the door.
So that's why they're there?
Allow me to finish. And so we move our forces out of the way, which essentially gives the Turkish the opportunity to go after the Kurds. That's the problem.
I just think the question about Turkey is whether they belong in NATO. There should be serious consideration about kicking them out when they're detaining Americans and slaughtering the allies of Americans. There's a big question about whether they should be in that alliance.